Hi, K-Lady here. I'm going to have an overdue talk that I've been thinking about for a while and I knew I needed to do, but hopefully I can kind of crank this out fast for you. And this is for people that maybe have a 2 to 4-year-old and they found out that their child is on the autism spectrum or is told they have ASD or is autistic, which is old terminology. I want to talk about it really quick because a lot of people don't know what to do, like I didn't when I was told that my 3-year-old, I think he was 2.5 then, was on the spectrum or was told he was autistic by an early interventions person when I went to seek out speech therapy. So I'm going to talk quickly about what we did and what you can do, or steps and things that you can, tools that you can do that will help you greatly on your journey, because there's a lot of research that you are going to want to jam into a very small period of time when making decisions for your child. And I'm hoping to make that slightly easier. So I'm going to grab my notes. I just typed these up in like 5 minutes because I really felt like I needed to do this quickly. But anyway, autism or autism spectrum disorder. For those that don't know, autism is considered a spectrum disorder, meaning you've got the spectrum, and if your child falls here and here and they're within the spectrum, maybe like in 3 categories, I believe that they do it, at least educationally, they look at 3 categories. If they have this level of speech, this level of something else, and this level of something else, they're considered on the autism spectrum. It is a snapshot in time. It is not a life sentence for your child. It is where they are now and where they fall into a spectrum. I mean, some children that have some sensory issues and ADHD can be considered on the autism spectrum. And we know that those things are just, some of those things can be temporary depending on diet, other issues. So we're just going to talk about that really quickly. So if your child lands on the spectrum, they call it ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder. That's not a technical diagnosis. That's where they're at in this time, and that's what we have to deal with. So maybe your child wasn't talking, or all of a sudden they lost eye contact and lost space and time, just started throwing lots of tantrums. There's lots of different issues that like a 2 or 3-year-old might have that kind of are gray areas that where you would be considered on the autism spectrum, and there's a lot of different factors that would cause them. So maybe close friends of yours have come to you and say, look, your child's not making eye contact, they're not speaking enough, you might want to see a doctor and find out if your child has autism. And there's nothing wrong with taking them to a pediatrician. Maybe your pediatrician has told you, you know, your child's just not talking yet. Some boys don't talk until they're 4, and that's normal. And I took my son into his 2-year well-child visit, and I was pregnant with my daughter. And I said, you know, my son's not talking yet. I think I should get him to speech therapy. And my doctor said, you know, he doesn't have autism. I think you should just wait. And I said, oh, I don't know. I really want him to get him to speech therapy. I don't want to have a baby and then have another child that's not speaking and everybody's going goo goo gaga. And he goes, it's totally up to you, but I would wait. So I decided to take him into early interventions because I knew that they had services that were provided by the city. Basically, you could have someone come into your home and do free speech therapy for your child if they needed it. So they did some tests. I took him into the little early intervention center, which at first I called and someone said, oh no, that doesn't exist. Totally exists. So you call your school district and you find out, this would be my number 1. Call your school district, your local school district you're paying taxes for, and you find out who's the head of the early interventions. They will have you come in and they will just do some little play, fun testing. You know, they have them play with blocks and toys and try to get them to speak and do different things. And they will let you know if they qualify for any kind of services, whether it's speech therapy or occupational therapy through the school district, and that's the early interventions. And they can give you a diagnosis based on education if your child is on the autism spectrum educationally. It's different from the the doctor's diagnosis. So that was the first thing that we did, and it was very helpful. They really pushed us and pressured us to go to OHSU, which is the Oregon Health and Science University, to find out if he was to get a medical diagnosis. And I was so confused by this. I was like, medical diagnosis, I don't understand. You know, it's hours of testing, and they have a shrink there, and they have a speech therapist there, and they have all these people observing your child, and it's hours long, and it's going to cost me a couple $1,000s out of pocket for you to tell me what, he's PDD-NOS or pervasive developmental disorder, or he's on the autism spectrum or whatever. I didn't understand. I want to pay all this money to find out he's what he is, you know, and it's something that can change. So I was so happy that I decided against that, because also that's a diagnosis that kind of stays in your child's file for the rest of his life. So if you do decide to go that route and have that testing done, I would actually persuade you to do some other medical interventions to see if your child gets better before you go and have that testing done, because it's going to change. So unless for some reason for your insurance to cover testing that you need done or ABA therapy, unless they require a medical diagnosis, you might be able to get one from your pediatrician that is not so invasive and doesn't cost anything. So that's what I opted for. We actually, I just had my pediatrician write prescriptions for applied behavioral analysis therapy. And I think I did a questionnaire. On over the phone with our insurance, and we were able to get our ABA therapy covered by insurance for the most part. A percentage of it was like 90%. So those are things that you're gonna find out very quickly, like, oh, testing this and that. Okay, but I would say the most important therapy or the most important testing that you do for your child is going to be something that a DAN doctor, defeat autism doctor, or a holistic doctor, a naturopath, somebody is going to help you with. And that kind of testing, there's a really great book that I read, written by Jerry Cartzenell and Jenny McCarthy. Jenny McCarthy is obviously famous, and her autism doctor wrote a great book. I believe it's called Healing and Preventing Autism, a Complete Guide. And what I loved about this book was there was a table in the book, and it talked about all these symptoms like that your child may have, and all these different remedies that you can do that helps, like whether they need B12 injections, whether they need vitamin A, whether they need cod liver oil, like they'd be like stimming this, that, they'd have a list of things, or not being able to sleep, and then they'd have, you know, different things that you could do to help. But I thought this book was really excellent. It was one of the first books that I read after I was told that my son was on the spectrum, and I thought it was great. It really helped me with understanding. So that book is going to tell you basically the testing that you need to get for your child, and to help you direct your doctor. I think some of the most important tests is a stool analysis test to find out if your child has any life-threatening bacteria in their system. Something to test for yeasts, pathogenic yeasts, which is some kind of urine analysis test. Sometimes there's multiple tests that you can find out about, you know, if your child has too much candida or things like that. And then also a heavy metals test is a really good one. And then the other thing would be like a SpectraCell vitamin analysis test to find out if your child is absorbing vitamins and minerals from their foods, and to see what they're deficient of. My son was extremely deficient of B12, and he also, an IgG, food allergy test is good too. So that's going to tell them what foods your child's body is attacking itself when they eat. So the IgG, like my son, severely allergic to gluten, dairy, other things, everything that he ate he was allergic to. And it's because he had a leaky gut. You have holes in your gut, the food leaks out into the blood, and your body attacks it. So the most important thing you can do for your child is remove all of the foods that the body's attacking itself when it eats, which is what you're going to find out in an IgG test. It's a food antibody test. Biotech is the test that we did. And then give your child nourishing foods, fresh pressed juices, and bone broths, and everything that you're going to read about in the GAPS book. And that's the Gut and Psychology Syndrome book that is written by Dr. Natasha McBride. And that book saved my child's life, along with our nutritionist. That was really what we did to really help our child get out of the funk that he was in. And we later found out that through the testing, we found out that my son had PANDAS, and that's not considered autism. Put him on the spectrum, it doesn't matter. Which was a strep infection that was so bad that it shut down his whole body. All of the toxins from the strep was basically making him insane. So he basically just lost 2 years of his life because he was insane, because his neurotransmitters weren't working, he had a leaky gut dysbiosis, all these gut issues from the strep, because the strep basically drills holes in your gut, similar as candida, as yeasts, pathogenic yeasts. So he had pathogenic bacteria, pathogenic yeast. Basically, we had to balance that gut out to function so that his neurotransmitters could work correctly, so that the messages that were going to and from his brain could fire the way they're supposed to, and healed all of his sensory issues, the issues that he had with foods, textures, covering his ears all the time, those kind of things all got healed with diet. And the other thing besides food that's super duper important is to make sure that kid is pooping and they're hydrated. So the GAPS book covers that, as well as Healing and Preventing Autism by Jerry Cartzenell and Jenny McCarthy. So those are all things that you're going to want to look into that are super duper important. You know, I don't care what your doctor says. I do care what your doctor says. I'm not a doctor. I have just worked with so many people who have seen really bad doctors. Doctors that say, you don't need to change their diet. Let them eat as much sugar as they want to. You don't need to do this. Just go gluten-free and dairy-free and see how it goes. And they fail miserably because all of those horrible sugars and starches and grains they're eating are feeding all this pathogenic bacteria and yeasts in their bodies. So, my baby. Okay, so I don't want to badmouth doctors. Find a doctor that is on par with the GAPS diet, and that is on par with Weston Price, and that really understands nutrition and the role that it plays in your body. So, because I have just worked with so many people and met so many people that have gone to these doctors that told them they can feed their kids whatever they want. They just need to do therapy. And guess what? If your kid is crazy, how much therapy is going to help them? My son was absolutely insane. If we wouldn't have had that testing done to show that he had all that strep in his body and we didn't treat it, he would have died. So if you sit here and tell me all they need is therapy and you don't have to treat your child nutritionally, or you don't have to find out if they have bacterial or yeast imbalances in their body, I'm sorry. It's absolutely dangerous. If we didn't do that, my son, I don't even want to know. So I know it sounds good to be like, okay, feed them whatever they want. You know, they're picky eaters probably because they have all those sensory issues. Let's just keep feeding them the chicken nuggets and the macaroni and cheese. It doesn't matter if their body's attacking themselves or not. Find out, you know, like, and change the diet. If you are afraid that your kid isn't going to like something, you know, God forbid that your kid's happiness relies on the sugar that you shove down their throat. I'm sorry. That is not what's going to make them happy. What's going to make them happy is being able to speak and being able to be educated and being able to hold a job as an adult and to be able to understand people and to be able to make friends. And I'm sorry, you shoving sugar and grains down your child's throat is not going to do any of those things for them. And it's not going to do you any favors in the long run when you have to deal with the kind of stuff that you're going to deal with down the road because your kid's health spirals out of control. There is no child out there that is on the spectrum that is going to do better eating grains and sugar and starch. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. I'm not a doctor. If you have this amazing doctor and they're telling you that your kid is going to get healthier eating sugars and grains and starches, well, good luck. have a good time with that, because I'm sorry, if you examine the gut and the workings of the gut and how it works and how it functions, almost every child that is on the spectrum has some kind of gut dysbiosis. And that's why that is where the neurotransmitters are formed and recycled in the body. That is where everything, the inner workings of the brain is fed through the gut. If you have a leaky gut, you have things leaking into your body that are going to distort, that are going to have an effect on your brain, your body. I mean, if a child is sick all the time because they have a leaky gut and their body's attacking itself every time it eats gluten, you know, you think that they're going to have a good life if you keep feeding it to them. I'm so hardcore on it because I sit and watch these people feed their kids these horrible things that are making them so sick just because they're afraid of change and they're afraid of the hard work that it takes to pull those things out of their diet. And they finally do, because they get to a point of such desperation that they finally do it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done it sooner. You know, I wish I wouldn't have put myself and my child through this. And it's like, there's no time where it's going to be a good decision to allow your child to eat those things. And I know for some reason socially they're like, oh, I want my kid to be able to eat pizza with their friends. And guess what? If you heal their gut down the road, they can eat pizza. My child can actually eat pizza now. He can have pizza with a gluten-free crust, and it doesn't make him crazy anymore. And it did back in the day. I mean, that kid, if he had a little bit of ghee, which is clarified butter, he would go crazy. And now he can eat all kinds of dairy. And I just give it to him limited. I've actually reversed all of his food allergies. They went from, 5s to 0. Every single food now on the biotech test that we had done says 0 now. Every single one of his food allergies has been reversed because of so much healing that has happened in his gut. And, he's talking and he's doing well. He has no aid. He's going into 2nd grade with no aid. He had no aid in 1st grade either. He had no special treatment. He got all A's. He has little best friends. He plays with his sister every day. I mean, the kind of life that he would have had if I didn't change his diet and do what I did would be absolutely horrible. It would be horrible. He would have a horrible life because he wouldn't be able to speak. He had 20 words that I had to pry out of him with all of this therapy that we were doing. And it wasn't like he could speak on his own or tell me something like that he was thinking. It was like I had to tell him the word to say and try to get him to say it. Like the wheels on the bus go, It's like he couldn't say what was on his mind. And I just remember when he finally started being able to express his thoughts and be like, wow, Mom, Isla really doesn't like that. That's why she's crying, And I'm like, yeah, Asher, she doesn't like car rides. That's why she cries, and he must have been so happy to finally be able to open his mouth and speak what he was feeling, because he couldn't for years. When, you're used to having a typical child, a 2-year-old telling you, oh, my tummy hurts. And you have a 4-year-old that can't tell you his tummy hurts. All he can do is scream and cry. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And there are things that you can do to help, and you kind of have to exhaust everything that you can do, and instead of saying how little can I do, you kind of have to say how much can I do. Let's start with going the full-blown GAPS diet and doing infrared sauna to get rid of heavy metals, and doing lots of Epsom baths and essential oils, and getting water filters and structuring your water, and doing fresh pressed juices and vegetable juices, and doing whatever you can to give your child the best possible life they can have, because it really doesn't make sense to do the opposite, to see how little you can do. Be like, oh, maybe we can add a multivitamin or this or that and see if there's a little change. That's just not, it's not how I operate, and hopefully it's not how you operate, and hopefully you care about the quality of your child's life enough to do. My baby's banging on the door. That means that this video is too long, so I better get back to that. But I did share most of the things I wanted to share with you guys. I didn't look at any of my notes for the most part. That's kind of how I roll. I go on a rant like I did about diet because I've dealt with all that, but I better get back to my baby. But I want to share that all with you because I hadn't had a chance to. And I will hopefully go in more depth soon after I take care of this little one. So thanks for watching. I hope that helped in some ways. I'll put some notes underneath, in the bar underneath, about the books that I talked about and some of the other things that I talked about as they come to me. So I'll talk to you all soon. Stay healthy. Bye. Okay, so uber duper quick. I forgot to mention grants. So maybe you make under 60,000 a year or under 100,000 a year, and you are really concerned about all of the testing that your child needs. Autism Speaks, as well as ACT Today, that's ACT, ACT Today offers grants. And I have multiple friends and people that I have met, and they got those grants and they got them approved very quickly. I'm talking like within a week or two. So, and that testing, those grants paid for their DAN doctor visits. They paid for biomeds. They sent boxes of multivitamins, healthy, you know, B12, lollipops, things like that. They sent things to their houses for their kids so they could start with that intervention right away. And it's amazing. And they paid nothing out of pocket to see these doctors and get biomed. So Autism Speaks website, go on and register for their grants, and then they'll have all of the stipulations and things like that listed, as well as ACT Today, ACT Today. Go ahead and Google those and fill out the questionnaires, and you might have to type up a little page or two about your child and what they're going through. And they have amazing grants to get your child going on the right path, get them to see an autism doctor, and to get things rolling. So I just wanted to mention that before I went.